Welcome! This is Dr. Plague, and can I help you?
Can you 3D print me a name plaque for my YouTube channel, Hamster Oasis? Make the plaque gold and give it black lettering, please.
But I only have a single extruder 3D printer. How do you expect me to print in more than one color?
You're an engineer. You'll figure it out.
Have you ever tried to 3D print more than one color on a single extruder printer? A common approach is to have the slicer position the print head away from the print and pause the printer within the G-code so that you can swap out the filament. Then, after you swap out the filament for a different color, you could press a button to resume printing. But what if you have a stubborn printer that makes it difficult to do this? Well, with the printer I have, this doesn't work. The printer I am using is a Monoprice MP10, and if you try pausing it within the G-code, there appears to be no way to resume printing. It just locks up. If you know of a way to resume printing after a G-code pause on this particular printer, then please leave a comment below. You can pause this printer on its touchscreen and resume it, but the problem is that it buffers many G-code commands and will not pause until the buffer is empty. This means that if you pause the printer when the print head moves out of the way for a filament change, it will move back to printing position and continue printing for a while before pausing. This is frustrating, and I've thought of some solutions. I've come up with a solution that works well for me, and we'll show you what that solution is a little later. So, let's get started and design this two-colored plaque in FreeCAD. I'll create a new project and save it as Hamster Oasis. Now, I will select the Part Design workbench from the pull-down, then I'll create a body and create a sketch using the XY plane to draw the plaque in 2 dimensions. I'll draw an arc with a vertical constraint, set it to 90 degrees, and give it a radius of 1/2 inch. I'll move it 1.5 inches from the horizontal axis and 3.5 inches from the vertical axis. I'll add a vertical and horizontal edge and place another arc centered on the vertical axis, connected to the horizontal edge and the vertical axis, and move the center 1.5 inches below the horizontal axis with a radius of 3.5 inches. Now, I'll create a symmetric copy about the vertical axis, then the horizontal axis. I'll then pad it to 1/16 of an inch. Perfect. Let's give the top edge a small chamfer to make it look nice. Now, I'll export this to an STL file named Hamster Oasis. Let's switch to the draft workbench and create a couple shape strings to add some text. I'll select the font, make the height 1.25 inches, change the string to hamster, give it a Y position of 0.1 and an X position of -2.65. I'll make another shape string for the string Oasis with a Y position of -1.1 and an X position of -1.75. We'll drag the shape strings into the body and pad them to 0.007812 inches. Enough for one 3D printed layer. There's the 3-dimensional plaque. Beautiful. Let's export this to an STL file named Hamster Oasis Text. Now, I'll take the first file that we created, the one without the text, and open it with Cura. We'll be printing this entire file with one color, gold. I'm gonna change the layer height to 0.18 millimeters since I have found that text prints best at this height on this printer. I'm gonna use a support blocker to add a priming block so we can help prime the nozzle after a color change. I'll change the Z height to 1.6 millimeters and position it to the XYZ coordinates of 0, 60, and 0 millimeters respectively. Then I'll change the per model settings to normal model so we can physically print this block. Now, let's slice it and preview it. And this is what we'll end up printing in gold. Perfect. I'll save it to a file. Now I'll open the second STL file we created in Cura. You know, the one with the text. We're only concerned with the top layer in this one, and we'll splice it to the other file afterwards. The top layer of this file will be printed in black, per Mrs. Plague's instructions. For this text, I'll change the line width to 0.3 millimeters and reduce it to one wall line. I'm also going to lower the print speed of the top to 10 millimeters per second to help with the print quality of the text. I'll add a support blocker like I did to the last file, but this time I'll make the height 1.8 millimeters since we have an extra layer to print. Notice that I unselect uniform scaling when changing just one dimension. Now I'll slice it and preview it. I'll simulate the top layer to make sure the priming block is printed before the text. Otherwise, the priming block does no good. This looks great. So I'll save this to a file, and there's the two G-code files that we have. Now, remember I told you that I'd show my solution to swapping colors on this printer? This is what I do. I'll merge the two G-code files together by copying only the top printing layer from the second file into the first file. Then I'll create some of my own G-code between the merged layers where I want to swap the color of the filament. Remember that I said my 3D printer buffers G-code commands and after a manual pause it continues printing until the buffer is empty? What I want to do is add some G-code to cause the print head to move out of the way and then start circling for a while before continuing to print. While it is circling, I can manually pause the printer and the buffer will be emptied before it is done circling. This will give me time to swap out the filament, and after doing so, I can unpause it and it will finish circling and then return to print the last layer in the new color. Sound easy enough? Let's show you how I do this. First of all, I'll take the first G-code file and copy and rename it to Hamster Oasis Plaque, just so I don't ruin the original file in case I make a mistake. Now, I'm going to open the second G-code file with the text using a text editor and search for the word layer to find the last layer. There are 10 layers and they are numbered 0 through 9, so I'm looking for layer number 9. Now, I'll copy all this down to the line below time elapsed. Next, I'll open up the Hamster Oasis Plaque file with a text editor and go to the end of the file to find the line below time elapsed and replace that line with the text we copied from the last file. I'll search up for the word layer to find the beginning of what we pasted in. Now, I'll add my circling code before the first G1 command of what we pasted. This will be between the second to the last and the last layer that will be printed. First, I'll add some G1 commands that will simply move the print head in a circle. Actually, it'll move it in more of a triangular motion, but you get the idea. The G1 commands will give the X, Y, and Z coordinates of where I want to move the print head, and the F variable will define the speed, which I'll just set to 1620. Once I enter the G1 commands to circle the head, I'll then copy and paste 9 more of them for a total of 10 circles. Make sure that if you do this, you use coordinates that will move the print head out of the way of your 3D print within the limits of your printer. So just copying my code may not work for you. Next, I'm going to add a G1 command to move the print head back into the position we were at before we started circling. And you can actually comment out the G0 above with a semicolon if desired. Now, very important, I'm going to add a G92 command that will set the filament extruder to the position of the next printed layer. If you don't do this, you will probably end up over-extruding or under-extruding the filament by a substantial amount. Notice where I copy these values from. Now, I'll save this file and open it up in Cura to make sure it looks good. I'll start simulating the second to last layer, and notice that when that layer is finished, the print head moves out of the way and starts to circle around. Now it goes to print the priming block before printing the text. Perfect. Let's take this G-code file to the printer and see how it turns out. I'll preheat the nozzle to 220 and the bed to 60 degrees Celsius. Then select the file to print. And here it goes. We need to keep our eye on this so we can pause it at the right time before it's too late. Now, when the print head starts to rise, I'll press the pause button and wait for it to come to a stop. I'm going to remove the gold filament from the machine and replace it with black filament. I'll push the black filament through the Bowden tube and then keep pushing it until all the gold filament exits the nozzle and only pure black filament comes out. I'll rip off the waste filament and press the resume button. You can see the print head continues circling and then heads down to resume printing. The priming block is printed first and then the text. The priming block is sacrificial and can be thrown away when the print is complete. And there it is. After giving the bed a chance to cool off, we'll remove the plaque from the print surface. And there we have it, a 3D print with 2 colors. Let's see if Mrs. Plague likes her new plaque.
This is awesome. This will be great for my YouTube channel. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel, Hamster Oasis, where you can follow Pepper's adventures.
Fantastic! And don't forget to check out Hamster Oasis. So, that will wrap it up for this video on multicolor 3D printing with a single extruder. Now, depending on your 3D printer, you'll probably want to tweak the slicer settings until you get something that works for you. Don't just copy my settings because they may not give you the proper results on your particular printer. Please leave any comments or questions below and I'll try to answer as many as I can. So, if you like this video, be sure to peck at that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and peck at that notification bell to be notified of all my new videos as they become available. Thank you! And we'll see you next time, right here on Dr. Play.